Presentarles a Donnie McClurcan, que es cofundador y director de estrategia en el Postgrowth Institute. Donnie es australiano, está radicado en Villa Langostura. Ayer hizo una odisea enorme para llegar a Uruguay y llegó tarde, muy tarde en la noche, pero acá está con nosotros, basándose en el trabajo como consultor para más de 500 proyectos de empresas de impacto social en 37 países. Su enfoque profesional ha sido diseñar marcos, metodologías y experiencias para la colaboración creativa y la liberación colectiva. Además de esto, Donnie es una persona súper generosa. Nunca le hubiéramos pedido que viniera y se quedara los 3 días del evento. Él lo ofreció con total cariño, así que mañana nos va a estar acompañando en la cárcel, va a estar acompañándonos también en una actividad del Círculo de Impacto y el jueves va a estar dando un taller. Así que con una generosidad enorme pido un aplauso para nuestro primer speaker, Donnie.
Tomemos un respiro juntos. Our bodies, your bodies, know so much. Your bodies know more about the companies and the NGOs that you work in than mine. Your bodies know more about the industries that you work in than I will ever know. Sus cuerpos saben más español que del mío. And your bodies, I believe, know more about what to do next than you might realize. To test this thesis, you need a piece of paper and a pen. We are going to do an experiment. So if you grab a piece of paper and a pen, please. And we're going to start by drawing a line vertically down the center of your page. In the top right, write the word future, futuro. And in the top left, we write the word present. And we're going to start on the right-hand side. I want you to imagine a future that is working for everyone and everything, human and non-human species alike. An economy that's working for everyone and everything. Just imagine that for a moment. And when you're connected with some kind of imagery, drop down into your body and feel it. How does it feel in that economy that is working for everyone and everything? And when you've connected with a feeling, with your eyes open, draw a symbol or a shape without lifting your pen that represents how it feels in that economy. Draw a symbol or a shape without lifting your pen that represents how it feels in that economy. Draw a symbol or a shape without lifting your pen that represents how it feels in that economy. Okay. And now we move to the left-hand side. How does the present economy feel? And again, when you've connected with that feeling, draw a symbol or a shape without lifting your pen that represents how the present economy feels. A symbol or a shape without lifting your pen that represents how the present economy feels. Okay. I've been conducting this experiment for maybe 13 years now with more than 10,000 people from all over the world, probably from more than 100 countries, across every kind of difference I can imagine. I've done this with Fortune 500 CEOs. I've done this with people living on the street. I've done this with people who are fully believing that the present is better than it's ever been, and others who feel that the present is worse than it's ever been. I do this experiment with people who believe deeply in free market capitalist economics, and I do this with anarchists who are of all persuasions who are against capitalism in totality. It doesn't matter who I do it with, where, or even in which language, people consistently draw one of 5 symbols or shapes for the future, or one of 5 symbols or shapes for the present, or a combination or close variation of those. So I'm going to show you what people around the world draw, and then we can see how it compares with what you drew. Here we go. For the future, people consistently draw a circle, an infinity or a panarchy symbol, a spiral, a nodular blob, like some kind of nodules, or a heart. Hands up if you drew one of those or a close combination or a variation. Just have a look around. Okay. And for the present, people typically draw a jagged line, an isosceles triangle, a downward arrow, a rectangle, or sometimes a box, or a mess of lines. Again, hands up if you drew one of those or a close combination or variation. Right, you can look around and see. When we look at these in comparison, what do we see? Take 30 seconds for yourself to reflect on what you drew and what you see people around the world draw, and see what do you notice about the differences. So we're going to take 30 seconds in silence to reflect on what you see about what you drew and what people draw. We'll take 30 seconds silence now. And now I'd like you to turn to someone near you or find someone near you, and you're going to have 3 to 4 minutes to talk about what did you draw and what do you notice here. So turn to someone near you or find someone nearby, and for the next 4 minutes, we have a conversation. What did you draw? Why? What are you noticing? Okay. Great. What I'd love to do is maybe hear from 2 or 3 people in the audience. I think we have a microphone that is going around here. So if anyone feels drawn to share what they notice or their experience, just raise your hand and we'll have someone come around with the microphone. Anybody willing to share? What did you notice? What did you draw? What do you see here? What do you read between the lines? And feel free to respond in Spanish if it's easier. Anybody willing to share? Yes, one here. We have one here. We start here, and then we go here. Thank you.
Bueno, lo que vemos por acá es que el futuro es circular, es amoroso, hay más armonía, y en el presente es recto, es puntiagudo, es ruidoso, duele, es como caótico.
Duele. Gracias. Y yo creo acá.
Igual era casi que lo mismo. Y bueno, y acá recogiendo unas
Un poco
palabras
más.
perdón. Y recogiendo unas palabras que estuvimos hablando acá también, como bueno, que vemos el futuro con esperanza, que vemos el futuro con esperanza, como con armonía, y el presente eso, tal cual es palabras que dijeron acá, duele, es puntiagudo, pincha, bueno,
Pincha,
básicamente.
Sí. Gracias. One more here, yes.
Solo para aportar, al menos es una convicción mía, pero creo que es algo popular o que se dice, pero si no lo comento. Las líneas curvas tienen que ver con lo natural, con la naturaleza, con el planeta, y sin embargo las líneas rectas son del humano. O sea, la naturaleza no presenta líneas rectas, la naturaleza presenta formas curvas. Entonces creo que en eso es súper interesante también que cuando pensamos en un futuro armónico, entre especies, o sea, amoroso con todos, nos vayamos hacia lo curvo, que es lo natural, que es lo que, o sea, de donde venimos, somos parte, y que cuando pensamos en un presente que generalmente está más teñido de cuestiones que a veces no nos gustan tanto o que todavía queremos transformar, este presente lo recto para hablar de eso, que a veces tiende a ser un poquito más peyorativo, y ahí está lo recto y ahí está lo humano. Entonces me parece eso como una potente reflexión.
Thank you so much. If I understood correctly, that's going to fit beautifully with what's coming next. Because the takeaway that I have most after doing this experiment for 13 years is all of those pieces, and we have non-linear and linear. This is the distinction that I see. And if we look at nature, la naturaleza, we know that all living systems thrive on circulation which is non-linear. Exactamente. And what happens in living systems when you do not have circulation? You have death. Think of carbon, nitrogen in the atmosphere, but also in our bodies. What happens when we have an accumulation of blood or oxygen or a lack of these things? We have gangrene, we die, heart attack, these things. So all living systems thrive on circulation, this non-linearity. And everybody in the world, in their bodies, knows this. In other words, maybe the strategy of many of us here, is a bold claim, has been a little in the wrong direction because a lot of us, myself included, spent many years trying to convince other people. We have to, we have to do this. But if we all know in our bodies, maybe it's not about you must do this, we have to, but remembering what we know and realizing that we are all walking through this world with different levels of cognitive dissonance. We have a knowing, but we have to live in a different body. I show up at work, I cannot fully let go all of the things that I'm feeling because it's not allowed, for example. So if we know these things, and we are in this room because of this knowing especially, I'm going to suggest that there are some things that we might have been missing about non-linearity. Because when human systems function like healthy natural systems, they're based on that circulation, not accumulation. And this room is very familiar with this first part here, right? The notion that the ecology requires us to be interdependent with its stewardship, not this extractive relationship, this separation. And the circular business models rather than the take, make, and dispose. You're all familiar with this. I have nothing I can offer you in this field. You are the experts. But, and I will guess that 50% at least of the conversations you are going to have in the next 2 days will be about this. The other 50% will be about your life and small talk, but most of the conversations will be about this. But what if there is something deeper, something more to explore that is even more powerful, that affects these things more? What other things do we need to be circulating? Yes, the resources. Yes, we need carbon, we need supply chain management, we need all of these pieces. We need to be working with these components. But what else needs to circulate? I would suggest that in our economies, there are 2 other elements that require circulation for the system to be healthy. And they are a little more powerful than focusing on circular business models. The first is power itself. If we think about a society that has a partnership culture rather than a dominator culture, a society where, for example, many of your businesses are competing with each other, but they are competing in a framework that is competition. And the collaboration that happens inside competition. I imagine a future not where competition doesn't exist, which is a lot of what my colleagues say. They want a future without competition. I'm not interested in quite that. I'm interested in what happens when we have competition within a collaborative framework. And that is a little bit more like this event. There is a baseline level of collaboration and you are still competing with each other, but for an outcome. But with power, I wonder how the decisions are made in your organizations, your companies. My guess, it could be wrong, is that you are still running with a top-down model. That many of you here report to someone. In my organization, with 33 people across 19 countries, nobody reports to anybody. Now you might think, but that's crazy, it's not functional, you know. You are working in a not-for-profit, you are not working in a for-profit business that requires these deliverables, the pressure to perform. I would suggest that models that allow teams, if you are working with teams, to make decisions together based on consent rather than control is much more creative, much more innovative, much more human, much more empowering. We use a method at the Post-Growth Institute called sociocracy. Maybe some of you have heard of this. Maybe you know holacracy, similar variation. Someone makes a proposal, I'm proposing this, and then anybody have any objections is the question after we clarify things. And if someone has an objection, get this, right? Typical kind of workplace scenario, someone asks a question and someone is afraid to say something, especially if it's the boss who is saying something. In our organization, if someone says, I have an objection, everybody goes, ooh, what is it that maybe we are missing? Is treated as something really interesting for us to learn about. So we lean in, and then the person tells us what they would need to modify with the proposal for it to be good enough to try. We go slowly, relationally, which means we go smoothly, which means we go fast. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So when we circulate power in our organizations, we actually see a change in the decision-making about the resource usage. But there's something even more upstream than power, and maybe you guessed it already. It's the money. I dream of an economy that is adapting to what is needed rather than a growth-driven economy. What does this mean for businesses? For me, it's about where profit is in service of purpose rather than profit being a purpose. This is a little different to some of the language that is used. I'm going to tell a very brief story to make this example. 9 years ago, I was at another Sustainable Brands conference in Philadelphia in the US. Nobody knew who I was, which was perfect because I wanted to run an experiment. I had seen that there was a table, I heard and then I saw, there was a table filled with IKEA representatives, just like yourselves, but from IKEA. I had been studying IKEA for maybe 6 years at that point and was very interested to ask these people a question. So I sat down at the table and I said, before I tell you who I am or like why I'm coming to you, could I ask you 2 questions? And they're like, okay. I said, did all of you used to work for for-profit companies in sustainability before IKEA? And they all said yes. And I said, and now that you work at IKEA, which is a not-for-profit, I don't know if people realize, but nobody has any private individual equity ownership of IKEA. The profits all go back in. And I said to them, the second question, what is it like for you working at a not-for-profit company like IKEA in terms of sustainability? And I watched their body language change, all of them, all 4 of them, just like, it's so much easier. One of them said, we come in with proposals about sustainability and we are not being asked immediately what is the bottom line. We don't have to immediately talk about the shareholder return. Why? Because at IKEA, profit is in service of purpose because of the business structure. Now, not everybody here is in the privilege to have the power in organizations to talk about organizational structure and ownership. No. I'm not even suggesting that that's the case here. But this question of ownership matters, especially in terms of supply chain. And I'm going to ask one more question here. This is for you to think about for yourself. How many of you here know who your organization or company banks with? When I ask this question of audiences, most people don't know who their company has most of their money banking with. Is it possible that all of the work we are doing in the circular economy focus is important, but that who we have our money with in terms of what that means, in terms of circulation of money in the global economy, is maybe as important, but we don't look at it so much? So that's an invitation to tease open things a little more. How can power be circulated more in your organizations, in your teams? How can you think about money circulation a little differently? And where are the places that you could influence that maybe you didn't think you could influence before? Because this question here to end, how can we advance these full circle enterprises, right? Not just in our constrained areas around carbon or nitrogen cycles or these pieces, but how do we actually expand, inspirar un poco más? How do we breathe into the moment for a thriving full circle economy? Our bodies know. For these next few days, I invite you to trust your body when you are walking around the space in terms of who to connect with. I used to come to events like this and had a fear of missing out. I want to connect with everybody. Now I usually stand in the corner. It's a little bit overwhelming in terms of just the number of connections that are possible, right? If everybody here connected with everyone, we would have 50 years of work to do. So it's not going to happen. It's not important about the quantity of people you meet here. Who is your body? How is your body directing you to meet with the people here that you need to meet with? Your body knows. It knows that a future has to be circular, has to be non-linear. Your body knows who to connect with here. I invite you to entertain that possibility for these next 2 days, that your body is this magical thing. It is nature, And nature is wise. Nature knows from a deeper space of wisdom. And letting your body do this, letting your body guide you in your workplaces, in your journey, I invite you to consider the magic that is possible in all of this regenerative journey. Tomemos un inspiro juntos. Gracias.